You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Great that you could join me here today on part 2 of our weekend house calls. Yesterday, we answered a bunch of questions that came in from our community, people from all around the world, just like you, with the same exact health, wellness, weight loss, anti-aging, etc. issues, and simply looking to take their life to the highest level possible. And again, that could be optimizing energy. It could be optimizing for body transformation. It might be for mood. It might be for brain fog. It might be for sleep, skin issues, etc. Here's the thing, and I always say this, but it bears repeating, is that a healthy body cannot be sick. It can't be overweight. It can't have sleep issues. It can't have an autoimmune issue, all of those different things. So what we try to do on these weekend house calls, besides every single day on the Cabral Concept, is teach you one more thing, or build upon something else that can allow you to get your body back into balance. Because I can tell you right now, and again, this is just, we work with so many people in the practice, so there's no guesswork here. I mean, we're doing tens of thousands of labs, and so we just have a ton of data. And we see people come in, and they come in essentially with full rain barrels, or they come in depleted. And what happens is they always just say, well, I don't know how this happened. But the truth is that it's been gradually happening for many, many years, most likely from your childhood. That maybe you had a childhood like me where we didn't know. I'm eating Fruity Pebbles in the morning, or I'm eating Captain Crunch, or, what were some of my other favorite ones? Lucky Charms, Frosted Flakes. I would wake up and I would have some Kool-Aid, or I'd have some orange juice, just so it'd be a high sugar breakfast. And then, of course, I would crash mid-morning and have brain fog and feel like a zombie, and it would set my allergies off and all those things. And, then for lunch, I would have cold cuts with bread and, just, again, not healthy. And then after school, I'd have Coca-Cola, or I'd have some type of iced tea or Crystal Light. I mean, this is just the way that it was. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s like this. That's just the way that we did it. That's kind of like who we were, how we did it. And it was everyone. So it wasn't like just me. It was the dogma of the day. But that's why I tell you this. When I got sick at 17 years old, it wasn't an accident. It didn't just happen by chance. I didn't do it on purpose, just like I'm sure you're not in the position you are on purpose. Not a lot of people get sick or gain 100 pounds on purpose like they're trying to, right? It happens. And so what we want to do now is we say, okay, well, we got here. It might not be as easy to just reverse it, but we are going to reverse it. And that's what we're going to do. So the goal for these Cabral house calls, besides every single Cabral Concept, is to provide you with real-world, actionable data, not based on, oh, this may work, or, oh, I read this on Instagram, which our first question of the day actually deals with. So I wanted you to know that this, I hope that you understand that you can trust this. I would never give you information unless I knew and saw that it worked in clinical practice. And if I haven't seen it work, but there's anecdotal data, I actually tell you that. I tell you, listen, I haven't done this in clinical practice, but I know people who are doing it, small, right, segment of the population, and they're getting results from it. You might want to look into it. But for the most part, we've pretty much seen everything. And again, that only comes with decades of working with people and seeing over 250,000 client appointments. That's it. Like, again, there's no, when I saw 10 people, I didn't know that much. I had read a lot, but I didn't know that much, because you actually have to work with people, and then you get to see, how does this work in practice besides all the books that I've read? It's like you start to see how it plays out. So, all right, let's share some of that with you right now. First question coming in today is from Ian. Can you address a specific YouTube channel called James ... I didn't give you the full name, And the reason is I don't want to send people to this YouTube channel, and I'll talk about why in a moment, Ian. He talks about killing viruses, but has conflicting views, and I would love it if you could go check on some of the things he says about detoxing and getting rid of viruses and give your opinion on it. Okay, so here's the thing. Ian, I did pop over. I'd never heard of James before. He has a YouTube channel and talks about different things with viruses. Anybody who wants to put in the work because, of course, figure out what it is. But here's the thing. I can't find the exact video you're talking about out of hundreds of videos. I apologize, but I can't go and watch videos on YouTube and give my opinion. My day, and I know that this might not sound like the right answer, but I'm always honest with you. And my day is scheduled to the T. Like I told one of the people who basically heads up Equilibrium Nutrition, I said, I'm optimizing right now, and I took this actually from Jeff Bezos. I'm optimizing my toothbrushing. I'm literally making sure that there's no wasted time during the day, and so I can't schedule in 20 minutes to watch James' YouTube videos, but I did watch one right off the bat, and it was not everything that I would agree with, and he's not someone that I see working in clinical practice. And although I do agree with some of the things that he talks about in the video, I don't agree with the all for one. And I believe wholeheartedly in bioindividuality, which is why I believe in lab testing. And also it depends on the part of the world. Like he's talking about raw veg, like eating raw vegan for a lot of the meals. Well, okay, believe me, raw living food, agree with it. January in Boston, all raw food, can't agree with that. Okay, so just want to leave it at that. And we'll keep it at that. If you want to see absolutely what works through science and in clinical practice on how to kill viruses, check out episode 760 of the Cabral Concept. Okay, and again, I'm not telling you that it's the only thing. Again, it's not even me doing it. I want to tell you that I accumulate the information, I use it in clinical practice, I see what works, I make those recommendations to others. Okay. Laura's up next. I just listened to your podcast on food combining. Wow, thank you. Now I realize that fruits are best eaten alone. With that being said, I drink a smoothie every morning with organic fruit, greens powder, ginger, lemon, and fresh greens. Should I remove those fresh greens from a smoothie? I see that fruit and vegetables digest at different rates. It can cause fermentation. Thank you. Laura, absolutely. Thank you for the comment. We have answered this, but I'm happy to answer it again. Anybody who wants to learn more about food combining, just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts and type in food combining. That's it. And you'll find those previous podcasts. Well, here's the thing though. And I give a little story about the Sunday dinners I used to have with my grandmother's, one of my favorite things that I can remember. So here's the thing though. And I agree with all of this, and obviously I stated it right on the podcast. So fruit should always be eaten alone or 30 minutes before a meal, right? So that's an easy way to do it. With the smoothie, a little bit different. Here's why. So you are taking foods that typically digest at different levels with different enzymes and to varying degrees. What you're looking at, though, we're talking about plant-based smoothies. We're not talking about mixing this with dairy because this would not work with dairy. Let's say you take a plant-based protein powder. You take 1 cup of blueberries, 1 cup of spinach. You take a tablespoon of, let's just say, avocado or coconut cream, whatever you want to do, and that's your healthy fat. Now, all those combined, not so great, right? Maybe they'd absolutely be different digesting levels. Blend it all together, turn it into a liquid, sip on it slowly, easy to digest. Why? Because you pre-digested it. So when we're talking about food combining, we're talking about a stomach that has to use different enzymes and different things to what? Break down the cell walls or break down the foods, right? So when you break down the cell walls of things, you use enzymes. That's great. We need those, especially in living food, right? And when we talk about proteins, we're not talking about breaking this down the cell wall specifically, but we're talking about adding more hydrochloric acid to the stomach. We call it in nutritional supplement form betaine HCl and pepsin, and that's it. So the body produces its own hydrochloric acid. That's natural. Now here's the nice thing. This is why a lot of people feel better on a plant-based diet. But again, it's not the reason to go on a plant-based diet, but they feel this way is because they have low stomach acid in the first place. Well, a smoothie helps with that too, because you don't need to produce as much stomach acid when everything's already been liquefied. And the reason why we suggest drinking it over the period of an hour or so is to time release all of that nutrition, not fill up your belly with all of that liquid, and also it helps with glycemic control. But you already have all the fiber, the protein, all that good stuff. So this will work for 9.8 or 9.9 out of 10 people. Works totally fine. Then follow your food combining for your other meals. That matters. Okay, here's the thing though. And I talked about food layering. So I do want you to listen to the other podcast because this would be a 25-minute podcast, right, on food this. But here's the other thing, is that if the smoothie ever causes bloating, here's what we do. We do it almost like a food rotation. We do just the powder and water, the daily nutritional support and the water. Does that work? If the answer is yes, doesn't cause bloating, great. Then we blend that with blueberries. Does that work? If the answer is yes, great. Then we'll add in a little bit of healthy fat. Let's just say it's a little bit of whatever you want, honestly. You could blend up a couple raw Brazil nuts if you chose to. Okay, and then you add that. How does that feel? Okay, good, good. Now we add in the greens, which is always going to be the hardest to digest, especially raw greens. So what do we add in? We add in the greens. Then you get bloating. Well, what do we know? It's the greens when you add it to your smoothie. So what do? Take the greens out. No big deal. You could use a greens powder instead, like the daily fruit and vegetable blend, and that's what a lot of people choose to do. So, Laura, thank you for your question. Everyone else, check out food combining and check out food layering. If you can't ever find a podcast, go to cabralsupportgroup.com, ask the group, they'll find it for you. All right, Christy's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Thank you so much for taking the time to care. I'm really curious on what your take would be on the new research on vitamin E featured on Ben Greenfield's podcast. I don't know if you listen to his podcast or if you'd be willing to do so. Provide your opinion on a Friday review or something. Thanks. Okay, so I didn't listen to this particular podcast. I know Ben Greenfield. I was on his podcast, did an interview on his podcast, and he's a really bright guy. He's a great guy. And I think he does a lot of good. So here's the thing, though. We've been following advanced vitamin E protocols for about 8 years because there's been studies now, decades old, that using the wrong type of vitamin E is not good for your body. Just like using the wrong type of omega-3s or the wrong type of healthy fats or the wrong type of anything, the wrong type of vitamin A, right? So they can all be unhealthy for you. The best and healthiest form of vitamin E is D-alpha tocopherol with the mixed tocotrienols with it. So you get the whole family together. So what we do is we put a lower amount of vitamin E in our nutritional supplements, and then we get all of the vitamin E from our whole food diet, which is what we should be doing in the first place. So the only time we do a higher dosage of vitamin E is actually when we're working with someone with imbalanced cholesterol levels or lipid levels. And if they have high CRP, they have high cholesterol along with high LDL, low density lipoproteins, that is when we've seen a lot of benefit from vitamin E supplementation. But as we use the higher dosage, we would never go straight vitamin E. We would use the tocotrienols along with the tocopherol. So I'm sure, I didn't listen to it. I probably can't listen to it, but I'm sure that's what they were talking about. And this is good research. And so, yes, we follow the same exact thing. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate you writing in. Oh, no, your name is Christy. Did I get that wrong? Yes, it's Christy. Okay. Patrick's up next. Hey, Dr. Brawl, better than ever since finding your podcast almost a year ago. I've listened to almost all of your podcasts and did hear similar ones to mine. Like I mentioned before, I'm 5'7", down 40 pounds, now 165 pounds since taking some of your advice, like the 12-hour fasting and the sauna 3 days a week for 20 minutes. My question is about eggs. I've been eating eggs 2 to 3 days a week my entire life with no trouble at all. For the past 2.5 months, I can't eat eggs anymore. After about an hour after eating them, I'll get a stomach ache that lasts for about 3 to 4 hours. I did stop eating them for a month, and once decided to have them again, I had the same exact pain again, so I skipped another month and the same result. Nothing else bothers me at all, and I haven't been on any type of diet or medication the past few years or anything, so I'm not sure what changed in the past few months. Love your DNS, both flavors. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you. Patrick, thank you. I appreciate you writing in, and I'm so happy to hear of your success. I love hearing success stories. The more people can share success stories at Cabral Support Group or here or anywhere, I read them all. I really do. I mean, this is, so when people hear me say like, oh, I can't watch other YouTube videos, I can't listen to a lot of other podcasts, or I'm optimizing my toothbrushing, it's because that I'm on a mission, right? And that mission is to affect as many people as possible. And that means I need to be creating more than I'm taking in right now. So before it was always consuming content, but now I want to be the one to share what I found on almost 20 years. So next year, 2020 will be 20 years of me working full time in this great industry. And I simply feel like I'm at the point where I should be sharing more. And that is case studies that I'm going to be sharing more of. I'm obviously teaching the Integrative Health Practitioner course and certification. I'm going to be doing more workshops. I've already written the Rain Barrel Effect. That's everything that I do. So people can literally get everything I do for like $12 on Amazon, and all profits on that go to charity because I don't want any money that comes from me sharing information. So, that's that. And I don't even know how I got on that rant, but anyway, Patrick, thank you. Oh, so the reason I got on that rant is, so it's like people ask, like, well, how can I thank you? Which is obviously really sweet of people to say that. And it's simply just sharing your success. That's it. Share your success. Tell people how you did it. That's it. However it was, be honest. And that's, a really great thing. That's how we're going to do this because no one else is teaching this. They're really not. So you're not going to learn it from your parents unless they grew up with this. You're not going to learn it for sure in the media. Your PCP MD, unfortunately, was never taught it. So, how else do we learn? Well, we have to learn it from someone else. So we just need to pay it forward to each other. So, Patrick, it sounds like you developed what's called an IgE, food sensitivity to eggs. So here's the interesting thing. Some people, when you denature the yolk, aren't as reactive. What does that mean? If you made scrambled eggs versus over easy or sunny side up, as they call it, you may not have a reaction. Now, I'm not telling you to do that because if you're partially reactive, I don't necessarily recommend scrambling the yolk. And if you do scramble the yolk, you're oxidizing more of the fat. And so, I could go on and on about this. There's always intricacies and levels to this, but I don't want to go overboard, right? So here's the thing, though. Sounds like an IgE food sensitivity. We don't test for that anymore. We do the IgG, which is the latent response. I still recommend everybody in the world do that. Honestly, you're going to find something. It's so imperative that you do that because it shows inflammation that's created a day or two or even 3 days later from common foods that you're eating. And the bottom line is you would never know about these unless you did the IgG food sensitivity test. I think in the future we might even rename that complete food sensitivity test or something like that. I don't know. I don't get into all the naming. It's just I read the labs and tell people, hey, here's what we found. Eliminate this for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, or 6 months, and then try reintroducing it. Patrick, minimum skipping of this is 12 weeks, I would do. And then I would try the reintroduction just once to give your white blood cells some time to become desensitized to these eggs. Now, here's one other thing, though. Did you switch to a different brand whenever this reaction started? A month or so after you switched brands. Are you getting them from a different farm? Go back to what you were doing in the past if you got them from another farm, okay? Check that out because it could be the feed, possibly, right? Possibly that they're giving the chicken and then you're reacting. It's possible. So check that out, Patrick. That's my recommendation. But it sounds like you might have an IgE sensitivity. You can also run gut-based testing if you want to look at if there's any intestinal permeability. But again, this sounds like a IgE sensitivity. All right. Anonymous is up next. Hello, Dr. Brawl. I'm a 31-year-old female that has diffused hair loss. It runs in my family as both of my parents and siblings have it, androgenetic alopecia. I'm wondering if there is any possibility for me to halt and reverse my hair loss, even though it's genetic. Hair loss started 3 years ago. I do currently have some thyroid and hormone imbalances, and I'm working to balance those and think it may have triggered early onset alopecia for me. I'm on the 21-day detox at the moment and trying to figure out my next steps for it. Don't know if your clients have had positive results in regrowing hair and wanted to get your thoughts on this. Thanks so much. Okay, Anonymous, thank you for writing in. You wrote in on 4/8. I know it says Anonymous, so obviously you don't have a name to go along with it, but you wrote in on April 8th. So we've worked with every single form of alopecia. Androgenetic alopecia is both men and women. And a lot of time we see a thinning through kind of like the top of the head in both men and women. So it's not just like male pattern balding. But with this particular form, it's typically in a more defined pattern. We see a recession of hair that essentially starts like in the corners and thins out like through where the hair would part on either side. So here's the nice thing is that we work on this just like we would for any other type of alopecia. I've mentioned this before. We have had the greatest success with alopecia based on gut overgrowth issues, particularly candida overgrowth. So we work on it topically and we work on it internally. Now the test for that is the organic acids test and the stool test. Okay, those are the two tests. Now, there's one additional test because alopecia, typically there's a gut-related issue. However, it's triggered by a hormone imbalance. So it's triggered by the stress in the body, which either does two things. One is it lowers thyroid, or number two, it increases the output of testosterone from stress and lowers the levels of progesterone. All of this can be seen in depth on a thyroid adrenal hormone lab test. Those are the 3 labs that I recommend for you, Anonymous. That is exactly what I would do. No ifs, ands, or buts, and that will give you your answer. Because remember, there isn't a thing to do particularly, but again, I have previous podcasts on alopecia. So go to stephencabral.com/podcasts and just type in alopecia. Now, I know you're probably going to say to me, yes, but this is androgenetic alopecia. And again, I understand it. Believe me, I know. But we just like to give diagnosis names to all of the particular conditions that we're dealing with. So I'm not saying I don't appreciate the name that you were given for it. However, what I'm all about is the root cause, not the name. All right? Thank you for writing in. Let's do one more question. This one is from, time flies. I can't even believe something. I'm looking at my clock right now and it's been 21 minutes. All right, Pam's up next. I love your podcast and mission. My question is about getting off Afrin nasal spray. My situation a bit different, unique, because I probably won't be ready to stop for a few months. My airways are always impinged. Let's see what else is going on. In my teens, I had 4 teeth pulled for braces over the next 4 decades. I had some shifting of my bone structure. Haven't had an x-ray done yet. Resorted to nasal spray to open up the nasal passages. Finally, at a holistic dentist office, they were able to see what was going on. Luckily for me, they were able to utilize cutting-edge technology by using an appliance to expand my uppers, creating the space that was needed that was taken away. That step is now completed. Sometime during this movement, my jaw will be moving forward, taking the pressure off my airway. Do you have any other tips to help my body except for the nasal spray? I have the sinus support by Equilibrium Nutrition, the Nutribiotic nasal spray, and the Nutribiotic throat spray. I've been using the sinus support even though I use the nasal spray. Should I continue? I can't thank you enough for answering these house call questions and sharing the vast amount of knowledge you've gained. You are truly an angel, a very masculine one though. LOL. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I am actually laughing right now. Pam, thanks so much for writing in. You know what? This story is not dissimilar to mine. I had exactly 4 teeth pulled as well. It's a normal procedure. It's not normal. This is not normal. However, when they want to make space for you to have braces, they need some space in that mouth of yours, right? So they pull teeth. I had 4 teeth removed as well. And then I had braces on from, believe it or not, going into 5th grade all the way through going into freshman year of high school. So I had them on for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, a little over 4 years. And it was crazy. All sorts of different, let's just put it this way. I was not a sight to behold, or it was a sight to behold. At night, I had to put on headgear. It's a terrible thing if anyone's ever had to wear that before. In pain every night. My braces used to cut open the sides of my cheeks every night. It was horrible. Anyway, I'm not going to have flashbacks right now to those terrible memories for 4+ years. Plus, I didn't stop eating sugar, so my braces would fall off all the time. It was terrible. But anyway, and I used Afrin quite a bit because I used to get sinus infections twice a month, literally, during the wintertime, from November to April, because my allergies would then get terrible in April. And so I was on Afrin all the time. But again, you get addicted to Afrin and then your nasal passages need it. So here's the problem though, Pam. You're using Afrin spray, your body becomes dependent on it, and it's actually worse than when you're not on it. So when you get off Afrin, again, this is over the counter, so it's technically not medical, but you know that I can't give you medical-based advice, right? Because we don't do that, right? Only licensed medical doctors give medical advice to diagnose, treat, or cure whatever they're diagnosing, treating, curing. I have no idea what, but that's the lingo. So here's the thing. Let's talk about this. If I was in your position, because I'm not giving medical advice, but if I was in your position, I would very slowly wean off of Afrin at the slightest amount each time. Now, you can do that by the spigot, the squeeze, right? The spray, the amount of sprays, the amount of times that you do it per day, etc. Okay, here's the thing though. I know what you're going through, and I understand that the bone structural based change. And I believe I talked about this on a podcast, but maybe I didn't. So why don't I talk about this coming up soon? There's these things called nasal cones. One company is called, I don't have any stock in the company, but it's called Ease Breathe or Ease Breath because there's no E at the end of it. And they're meant for snoring, but you can actually wear them all day long if you chose to. They're made out of silicone, and you can wear them in your nasal passages to open up your nasal passages. However, I also recommend using a neti pot. That works tremendously well. Just a little bit of the saline if you need it. Of course, you need it if you're putting water through your nose to balance the pH. And I do still recommend the sinus support, and I recommend vitamin C as well. How much vitamin C? Anywhere between 1 and 3 grams per day. You could use the alkalizing vitamin C, 1 scoop upon waking, or you could do the full spectrum vitamin C, 1 capsule twice a day, and that would be fine as well. Work on your gut function. Make sure there's no candida overgrowth, because I had massive candida overgrowth in my gut, and it was in my esophagus and my stomach, and it was also my nasal passages. The Nutribiotic nasal spray and a couple drops of citricidal in the neti pot for 3 weeks also helped to clear that up too. What else can I recommend? Well, it's a good start. That's what I would do. Cayenne pepper or a lot of heat in your diet will help expand and circulate and open up the nasal passages. So at least that's a place to get started. I can't obviously give you like full protocols over the podcast, but that's exactly what I would do. Remember, there's always a rebound effect coming off of a lot of medications. So you want to wean off slowly with your doctor, do it smart, and there's no doubt there's hope for everybody out there. Remember, just like we started this call, healthy body can't be sick. But in order to do that, we need to slowly rebalance the body. Thank you so much for tuning into this weekend's Cabral House Calls. Hopefully you've enjoyed them. Honestly, the time flies by for me. I really do love answering your questions. I appreciate you. I thank you always for sharing this show with everyone you believe it could serve. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'll talk with you tomorrow on our Mindset and Motivation Monday. Stay tuned. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to StephenCabral.com/resources.